Hi, I'm Beck, and today we're talking about tomatoes, one of the most popular summer treats for your garden. Tomatoes are predominantly known for their delicious taste and use across a variety of dishes, from sandwiches to salads and so much more. The tomato is the edible fruit of the Selenium lycopodium plant, or more commonly the tomato plant. It originated in Central and South America, and the Aztec word tomatai gave rise to the Spanish word tomate, which is where we get the English word tomato from. There's a lot of disagreement about whether they're a fruit or a vegetable. Technically they're a fruit because they have seeds that grow from the flower of the tomato plant, but nutritionists class them as a vegetable because of their lower sugar content. But no matter how you classify them, they're perfect to grow in your garden. They have a ton of flavour, come in different varieties, and are easy to grow in both pots and your garden beds. There are over 19,000 tomato varieties, so there's plenty to choose from. But first you need to know that tomato plants are either determinate or indeterminate. Determinate tomatoes are bushy and grow anywhere from 50 centimetres to a metre tall and produce fruit that ripens all at the same time. This variety is perfect for making sauces, where you need lots of ripe tomatoes all at once. Once they finish fruiting, the plants will stop producing, so it's best to plant a series of these throughout the growing season. One of our favourite determinate varieties is the cherry Roma tomato, producing small fruits for easy snacking and containing the highest amount of the antioxidant lycopene. It requires no pruning or staking, so it's great in a pot in the balcony or on the patio. Indeterminate tomatoes are the more common types, as they produce fruits all through the growing season. They produce steadily, so pick these fruit often to encourage more flowers and thus fruit. They're known as vining tomatoes and climb upwards from anywhere between 1.8 to 3 metres tall, so it's super important that these are always staked. This here is a really good example of an indeterminate plant. This one here is a tomato sweet bite. As you can see, it's been staked, but as it grows, it'll need to be repotted and restaked to support all the new growth. The gross leaf indeterminate tomato is a great all-rounder, with tasty fruit perfect for salads and sandwiches. It's best picked slightly pink and allowed to ripen off the vine. The tomato is thought of as the best tasting heirloom tomato, so it's another great choice, although they can grow up to 2.5 metres in height, so are best grow in garden beds. The Rouge de Marmande, this one here, is a really popular heirloom variety. It grows to 1.2 metres, has slightly odd-shaped fruit, but it's really flavourful and great for pastas and salads. Sweet Bite is a cherry-sized indeterminate variety that's vigorous and high-yielding, making it another fabulous choice. Once you've decided on the best variety for your garden, it's time to choose where you're going to plant it. Tomato plants love sunshine, so when picking the perfect spot to plant your chosen variety, know that tomato plants do best in full sun, which is an average of at least 8 hours a day. They will grow in semi-shaded areas, but their production will be severely limited. In extremely hot conditions, you should provide some form of protection like this shade cloth to help reduce the chance of sunburn. Tomatoes grow best in rich, well-drained, slightly acidic soil that ideally hasn't grown a crop from the same plant family, like potatoes or capsicums, within the last 2 years. As all their flavour comes directly from nutrients in the soil, it's best to have very rich soil to grow in. So before planting, work compost or well-rotted manure into the soil, and that should provide enough nutrients for the growing season. Once you've chosen your variety and you've picked the perfect location, it's time to get your plant into the ground. Tomatoes are easily grown from seed. In late winter, sow them in a seedling potting mix in a free draining pot, just by scratching the soil and popping them in. Then cover them with about 6 ml of soil. Now place them in a warm spot indoors. At this point, they don't need any light. Keep the soil moist and warm throughout the process, and prepare a planting area outside with compost and soil in the meantime. Once they do start to sprout though, move them into a sunny spot or for best results under an LED grow light, as the winter sun is not very strong. Once the seedlings are growing, you'll need to thin them out. Select the strongest seedling and snip the rest off at soil level to avoid disturbing the roots of the nearby plants. When these plants reach 10 to 15 centimetres tall and all threats of frost have passed, Plant them in a position outside and water with a diluted liquid fertiliser. Watering in a seaweed solution is also a great idea. You can expect to begin harvesting in around 8 weeks. While planting tomato seedlings, only do this when coming into summer to maximise the growing season and to avoid the frost damage. Ensure they're in a sunny spot with lots of room to grow. When planting, remove the plant's lower leaves and pop it into the ground up to that level, so that the top of the leaves remain above the ground. This is because tomato plants can produce roots from their stems, and those extra roots give the plant more stability in the ground. Water in well and add a plant starter solution to the water to give your seedlings that extra boost. If the soil is warm enough, add a 10 cm layer of organic mulch, like this pea straw, straight away and right up to the stem. Trust me, the tomatoes can handle it. Stake, trellis or cage the plants immediately after planting, as this helps avoid damaging the roots later on. When staking, drive the stake into the soil to a depth of at least 30 cm and position it about 12 cm away from the plant. Secure the plant to the stake with some twine or string. You'll have to add additional ties every 15 to 20 centimetres as your plant continues to grow. When spacing out tomato plants, bear in mind the size they grow. Generally speaking, smaller varieties are best planted about 60 centimetres apart, and larger ones anywhere up to 1 metre. Since there's different types of plants, it's best to read the plant label before placing them into the ground. With your tomatoes planted, it's time to start thinking about helping them thrive. The first thing to watch out for is if there are any pests or diseases you might find in the plants. We're not the only ones who like tomatoes, you know. Aphids, fruit flies and mites are common pests for tomatoes, so keep a close eye on the plants and if sighted, treat them with an appropriate insecticide or an organic spray. Fungal diseases like powdery mildew, white powdery mould in the leaves or septoria leaf spot can also be an issue. Remove any infected leaves when you see them and spray the rest with the copper-based fungicide. Mouldy residue in the soil can rapidly produce early blight in tomatoes and can wipe your crop out in days. This occurs if leaves are consistently wet or if there's poor airflow between the plants. To avoid this, ensure the tomato plants are adequately spaced and that there's airflow between them. If required, treat with a fungicide to manage. Cracked or split fruit is a sign of over or inconsistent watering, and whitish blisters are likely sun scald. Blossom end rot is another common disease and can be identified by brown skin on the bottom of the fruit opposite the stem. This is caused by a calcium deficiency through overwatering or issues with the soil, but is usually prevented by using a good quality tomato fertiliser. Spring is the perfect time to prep your tomato plants for the upcoming summer season. If you've been growing your seed during winter, you can now transplant your seedlings into their permanent spots in the outdoor garden. Fertilise your tomatoes with a phosphorus-heavy fertiliser during planting, like these, then around 2 weeks before bloom begins, and then again when the tomatoes start coming through. But make sure you avoid contact between your plant and the fertiliser, as the fertiliser could burn it. Summer is a time when tomatoes will reward you for all your hard work during the year. During this time, make sure you water your plants consistently, but avoid watering the leaves or fruit, as this will avoid potential diseases. A good system would be to water every morning and perhaps an additional soak at night if it's been a particularly hot day. Tomatoes also require regular feeding. A liquid fertiliser every 4 to 6 weeks should do the job. Throughout the season, monitor your plant for any pest infestations and remove any dying stems or leaves, as these will be the first to develop problems. And finally, best of all, picking your tomatoes as they ripen will promote more growth throughout the summer, so don't forget to enjoy the fruits of your labour. Heading back into autumn or winter, know that temperatures below 10 degrees can damage tomato plants. Usually tomato plants are grown fresh in a new spot every summer, and this is the time to remove the old plants and prepare the soil for a different crop in spring. Tomatoes are usually grown as annuals, but they can, however, be kept alive by moving them inside to a spot that's bright, light, and as warm as possible. Well, there you have it. There's a tomato plant for every garden, dish, and taste. So head down to your local Bunnings to pick up these tasty produce. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips and tricks.